हवामहे कविम् कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजम् ब्रह्मणाम् ब्रह्मणस्पतः नः शृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती दीनामधिक्रियवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् परिणो रुद्रस्य हेतर्वणक्तु परित्वेषस्य दुर्मतिरधायोः अवस्थिरामगवद्यस्तनश्वमेध्वस्तोकायतनयाय मृडय स्तुहि श्रुतम् कर्तसदम् युवानम् मृगन्न भीममुपहत्नुमुग्रम् मृडाचरिद्रे रुद्रस्तवानो अन्यन्ते अस्मन्निवपन्तु सेनाः मीरुष्टमशिवतम शिवो नः सुमना भव परमे वृक्ष आयुधम् निधाय कृत्यम् वसान आचर पिनाकम् बिभ्रदागहि अर्हन् बिभर्षिषायका निधन्वा अर्हन् निष्कम्य रतम् विश्वरूपम् अर्हन् निदन्तयसे विश्वमभुवम् नवाभोजीयो रुद्रत्वदस्ति त्वमग्ने रुद्रो असुरो महो दिवस्त्वगुम् शर्दो मारुतम् पृक्ष ईशिषे त्वम् वादैररुणैर्यासि सङ्गयस्त्वम् पूजा विदतः पासि रुक्मणाः आहो राजा नमध्वरस्य रुद्रगुम्हो शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Start early, drive slowly, and reach safely. Start early. This epitomizes the sense that Bhagavan emphasizes the spiritual training should be given when the age is still not advanced. He has said the age group of 16 to 30 is a highly impressionable one because it is at this time that attitudes are formed and a behavioral pattern is concretizing. It is therefore essential that the training to life is to begin at a very young stage. Drive slowly is the second aspect. This is a modern age where each one of us wants things to happen in a jiffy, in a trice, everything instant, including liberation, instant liberation, and Bhagavan says. It so happens that liberation is something which cannot be given instantaneously. It is something that has to be acquired. I recollect once Bhagavan was speaking to an elderly devotee. He was explaining to him this very point. He said, you can plant a shrub or you can plant a fruit-bearing tree. The shrub will grow immediately, but of what use is it going to be to you? The fruit-bearing tree, on the other hand, will take time to grow, maybe even years. But when it does grow, it will give you fruits and it will give you its cool shade. Which one would you prefer? It is very obvious that if we indeed need a result that is going to have a long-term bearing on our life, it is going to require some effort. And that is where Bhagavan says, drive slowly. The effort has to be with patience, it has to be with perseverance. And in this context, it may not be out of reference to say that it must be filled with purity. I wish to share with you an incident that happened when I was a student in my undergraduate days. It was a very illuminating incident and the message driven is very clear. It was the time of Vinayak Chavati, and during every Vinayak Chavati celebration, the boys make it a very grand affair. We set up an altar in the mandir, in the hostel. We perform pujas to it, to the idol, and then we invite Bhagavan to come to the hostel. And Bhagavan arrives, gives a discourse, blesses the idol, blesses the students, makes everyone happy, and then he leaves. At this time too we were asking Bhagavan to come to the hostel, but somehow Bhagavan was not responding. And so it was at the time of Arati at 9:30 in the morning that Bhagavan had still not agreed to come to the hostel. So it was a batch of very despondent boys who were going back to the hostel. But nevertheless, we had senior students who inspired us and said, let us have bhajans. Maybe Bhagavan will hear and he'll come. And so we went back to hostel and we had bhajans. The feelings of the boys were being poured out. Each one of us was very eager that Bhagavan should come, if not in the morning, at least in the evening. But we wanted him in the hostel. And I also know that our senior brothers, along with many others, had worked really hard to make this event a grand success. There was nothing more we wanted at that time than having Bhagavan amongst us. While we were undergoing this trauma here, a divine drama was unfolding in the mandir at this very spot. Bhagavan, it was said, had retired for the day. There was no earthly chance in which he would have come down for the day. But as everyone dispersed, the doors flew open, Bhagavan came out and got into his car. It was well past 10 a.m., a time when Bhagavan very, very rarely comes down. And then while he was getting into the car, he saw the startled face of one of the elders on the portico. He said, "No, it is not me. It is the boys who are taking me." So he went to the hostel, and while the boys were waiting near the steps, Bhagavan's car glided in, and much to the astonishment and amazement of the boys, Bhagavan got out of the car. They were too shocked to react. They were just gaping there, ashen-faced. They didn't know what to do. Bhagavan gracefully climbed the steps and then said, "Well, you cried and called for me. Here I am." Then there was no reaction, and before the boys realized what it was, and they jumped into action, and we all took Bhagavan inside. We had a very glorious time in the hostel. It was only later we realized the statement what Bhagavan had made here in the mandir. He had said, "It is not me. It is the boys who are taking me." Then comes the third step, that of reaching the goal safely. Many of us present here will definitely interpret it as saying the achieving of salvation or liberation. But in this context, I wish to add that before liberation comes a very crucial ingredient, that of being an ideal human being. When we say an ideal human being, it is nothing but in what Bhagavan says, learning to live like a human being, act like a human being, and move about like a human being, not in the form, but in actions and thoughts as well. There are many ways which Bhagavan prescribes for this, but two of them I would like to stress here is especially applicable to this age where we are living in, and that happens to be Namasmaran with Seva. Bhagavan says, talk less, work more. Talking destroys your energy, talking ruins your memory power. Put that energy to work and chant the name of the Lord instead. You will have a much better effect. And this is where we approach the second aspect of what Bhagavan says. He says, use your energy to serve rather than to talk. Bhagavan has very often said that when you give a glass of warm milk to a hungry child, or when you give a blanket to a shivering man on the pavement, you are placing a gift of God into the hands of another gift of God. God serves, but He allows you to think that He serves. And this is the moot point of why service is to be done. To realize that we are but an instrument in His hands, and to realize that He is the one who does everything. The second part is to realize that in every person, in every bit of this creation lies Bhagavan, lies His reflection. There may come a time in a life when all this earthly aid is withdrawn from our hands. There may come a time in a life when we find that there's no one to support us. At such times we begin to doubt ourselves. How do we proceed? How do we make our life more fulfilling? How do we march on into this spiritual life? Here I would like to share with you another incident which happened in the hostel, which I was very fortunate enough to experience when I was a student. This took place when our examinations were just approaching, and for some reason we had upset Bhagavan. And Bhagavan had sent word to the hostel, tell the boys that their examinations are approaching, they need not come to darshan. This was something unheard of. Examination time is that moment when most of us look forward to coming to darshan. It may look very paradoxical or very chaotic to many of us who are outside. When we say, why is Bhagavan spending time with the boys when they need to study? It's actually the reverse that happens. When Bhagavan moves amongst us at that time, we get more energy. And believe me, even though we do not get time to study, we are more energized. We write the examinations much better. So it so happened that Bhagavan said, do not come to darshan. Tell the boys that they must sit in the hostel and prepare for their exams. Well, the warden and the teachers had a discussion. They said, very well, we shall write letters to Bhagavan, and at the same time, that bhajan which we used to attend in the mandir, we shall perform it in the hostel. Do bhajans and give aarti and then disperse. So on one day it happened. That very night message came once again. He said, no bhajans to be in the hostel. Tell them they should not waste even that half an hour for bhajans. They should sit and study. Things were getting more and more tricky now. We never came across a situation where bhajans were prohibited and studies were recommended instead. We knew that Bhagavan was genuinely upset. We were helpless. We could do nothing. But Bhagavan was leading us on to a very great lesson. It had an impact later on. So then we came up with another compromise. Well, no bhajans. 6:30 promptly, all of us will assemble in the dining hall, give aarti and then disperse. It went on. The next very night comes a message. Tell them even aarti should not be performed in the hostel. We were in a fix. We really did not know what to do. No aarti, no bhajans, no darshan. So whom are we to approach? And then the warden and the teachers decided, well, at least we are free. We don't have any exams to write. Let us go. That very night comes a message. Tell the warden and teachers they should help the students to study. They should also not come to darshan. That left us totally helpless. Who was going to talk for us? Where were we going to go? Here is where we recollect what Bhagavan says. When he gives you a trouble, he gives you the solution. The solution is always there. All it requires is a little bit of introspection. So we thought, and that night, some of our senior students went from room to room and they told us, this is it, our letters are being returned, our teachers are not being allowed to enter the mandir, we are not allowed to enter the mandir, there is only one option. Each one of us, let us sit and pray. Let us pray from the bottom of the heart that Bhagavan, we don't know what displeased you, but Bhagavan, you are our mother, you have to take care of us. It continued. And it was 2 days before the deadline was to expire. He has told us that you should not come to mandir until the exams are over. Still 2 days were left. When message came, the boys can come for darshan. We went rushing pell-mell. There was total hullabaloo everywhere. We were very excited. We were very happy. We came and sat down. Bhagavan just went around the boys. He didn't speak anything. And then when he came to the portico, very beautifully looked at the boys and said, how did you like the exercise? It was an exercise. And what was the exercise in? It was an exercise to tell us that when there is no one in the physical world whom you think is going to help you, look within. That is where you are going to find Bhagavan. That is where you are going to hear his voice. And that is where introspection is finally go to. Bhagavan says that when he is there next to us, there is literally nothing which we have to fear. For everything is going to be all right.